Muy buenos días, buenas tardes, muy bienvenidos a
Good
todos
morning,
al...
good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar of food safety. And therefore, this is our third and last webinar of in cities in Latin America and the Caribbean. My name is Maria Carieva Uribe. And I'm pleased to open up this knowledge exchange about the challenges and recommendations that are promoting policies to ensure food to improve and that through different connections, through different presentations. And therefore, I would like to tell you that we do have interpretation, that we have interpretation in Spanish, English, and Portuguese. You can go to the world icon and you can select the language of your preference. I would also like to remind you that you can send your questions to our panelists and to the moderator to the Q&A session and the Q&A session, and therefore you can send all the questions that you have. And we have to say that we also have a recording that it's going to be available next week in the IDB channel, and you are going to find this webinar that it's going to be recorded through the link that you are going to share. And therefore, for just that are here with us, that the cities network is a platform for knowledge for regional cooperation that seeks to enable the exchange and the solutions and the good practices between cities in Latam and the Caribbean. And given the complexity and the challenges and the nature of the multisectorial the network generates dialogue opportunities and of the public sectors and the academia and therefore in more than 200 cities that are part of the network. And therefore, how can we take advantage of this from the sectors of the bank? And what we wanted to do is to contribute to the leadership and to be able to and also to work on synergic organizations with different partner organizations to be able to obtain to want to be part of the newsletter of the network. You are the one that can use this link that we are sharing in the chat. Okay, before starting today's conversation, before I would like to tell you the different sessions that we did this year. We had the three webinar sessions, and we have the series of transportations. We have the series of climate action in cities, and this one that we're completing today about food safety in the cities of Latam and the Caribbean. And and therefore, we are going to start with today's sessions about food safety, and where we are going to talk about the different strategies for vulnerable groups. This is going to be the axis of our conversation today. And what we want it to show you innovative programs and food safety towards the vulnerable populations in cities, considering the integration of different groups and also the inclusion of gender in the production and provision of food in the cities. And therefore, when we want and therefore we want to improve the nutritional value, shorten the distribution chain to promote local economy, and also to reduce the emissions that are produced by long displacements of food. And okay, it's essential that we consider vulnerability factors of the populations, that we take into account gender, age, the ethnic origin, the culture, and also the literacy level, the diseases, and also the disability and and of course, above all, we need to consider poverty and the economic disadvantage. And yes, it's very important that we take into account the dependence that we have in some areas, the dependence on natural resources that there exists in some areas. And that's why today we are going to listen of the cases of Manta, Quito, Benjamin Constant in Brazil, and Mexico City. And we're going to cover strategies that want to ensure the local provisions of schools in the Amazon region, and also how to take advantage of products through urban orchards and to food banks that take care of the vulnerable population. And today we have the pleasure of having Carlos Salazar, which is our leading specialist in housing in urban development, that it's going to moderate today's session, and in which we are going to present some cases in the first part, and then we're going to have the discussion with experts. And at the end, we're going to have the space that we usually have for the Q&A questions, the Q&As, the questions that we receive in the chat, so that our panelists can give us their ideas and share with us the knowledge that they have. And that's why we're going to have as the main speaker, we're going to have the mayor, Valdivieso Zamora, that it's the mayor of Marta. Welcome, Mayor. And then we're going to have the spaces of the case of Ciudad de Mexico, Benjamin Constant in Quito, and we're going to have Arnold Ricalde, that it's the coordinator of Orgánica on the city of Mexico. We're going to have Mauricio Veloso Suarez, who is with the production secretary of Benjamin Constant Brazil, and Alicia Guevara, that it's the director of the food banks of Quito, Ecuador. Okay, these are the cases. Welcome, Arnold. Welcome, Mauricio, and welcome, Alicia. And thank you for being here with us today. And thank you. And the second part, and we're going to have in the discussion, we're going to be able to cover the key topics regarding the citizens and also the food elements. And we are going to have a conversation between Alfredo Rada Peña, which is a senior specialist of the environment and rural development and risk management of the bank. And we're also going to have Zulma Fonseca Centeno, who is the subdirector of Nutrition of the District Secretary of Social Integration of Bogota. And to all of them, and Rafael and Suda, and therefore we're to have discussion. And without further ado, I'm going to give the word of Salazar. Welcome, and to be here with us. And thank you so much for your invitation to moderate, and therefore thank you. Thank you. And for me, it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to moderate this. And therefore we do hope that this webinar gives a webinars and in this vulnerable populations, and that the municipalities of our region generate initiatives that are Mm. And therefore it follows. And without further ado, I am going to present Marciano Valdivieso Zamora, who is the mayor of Malta, Ecuador. And okay, I would like to tell you that the mayor works with different organizations, and also for people in the vulnerable sectors of the city. She works in the university, and she's a master in public administration of Universidad Tecnológica. She works in the government of Malta during the pandemic, and she works in coordinations with the different educational units of Malta to be able to foster the families that had more needs in this. The major is going to be with us. That it's family orchards that have been led by in and welcome, welcome, Mayor. Okay, welcome. Okay, there was a major connect. We're going to make a very small introduction to the project that she is going to introduce. It's going to call Family and Group Orchards. It's in Manta and provides healthy and free food towards towards and therefore, there is another types of community service as integral as comprehensive advising, soil analysis, preparation of soil risk systems, and also she delivers seeds, kits, and organic compost. And therefore, the participation of the community is an essential element, as we're going to see right now. And this interaction with the community, it's essential to be able to ensure that the plants that are the main resource of these orchards and are well taken care of, that they generate the product that we expect. And therefore, okay, that the major that's been the leader of the program has been able to get for 302,000 people benefit from 60 community orchards, and we've impacted thousands of people. Major, how are you here? I was talking a little bit and talking a little bit about the program that you have, but please go ahead. You know more than me. Okay, okay, it's a pleasure to greet you from the most beautiful city of Ecuador, and it's the city of Manta. This is a city where we all wanted to work together to move forward. We have seen so many success cases where before the gardens or the spaces of the houses looked gray, and with time they started to to plant, and we see that how the spaces look greener. So I'm dressed in green today because I wanted to be in tone, and this is what has happened in our city since 2019 when I arrived to the city hall. We here in Ecuador, through what the a council should legislate, but I felt that I couldn't just doing I think that I need to serve my people, not only do what I was elected to do. It has have had this culture of eating healthy food because my grandparents from an early age they took everything that they harvested, they took it home. Therefore I said I also want to do this in my city. And in 2019 in October, we there's a paralysis because everything that's public transportation paralyzes, and we can see that the products that come from the region where we usually harvest onion, tomato, onion started to get scarce. Therefore, I'm going to visit to one of the neighborhood leaders that tells me, hey, I want to show you this, that for me it's a solution amongst this paralyzation. And that he shows me his orchard. And then I say, wow, all of this in all of this in our cities, it's something that represent an effective solution amidst an eventuality. Therefore, I want to see how many orchards there were in the country, and we determined that there were 11 orchards. And then I decided on something. This is talking in the year 2019, at the end of 2019, and I say, okay, we need to do 100 orchards in 100 days, one orchard per day. And look, in December, January, March of 2020, the pandemic hits Ecuador, and they tell you, hey, you have to stay home. That was the motto. You have to stay home. But back then, we already had our 100 orchards, and these orchards, as they were short cycle products, they start producing. These are short cycle products like a turnip, the onion, a tomato, and peppers, beets. All of this was already being harvested amidst the pandemic by the 400 first families that were benefited. And there is a moment when we are at home we are at home and it only arrived to the people, and we only got products like tuna, like eggs, and we started to see these creative ideas of this woman that they decided to make, for example, spinach spaghettis, or for example, if they start making a salad of fresh vegetables with tuna. And we can also see that we are a national reference point because they make a report in the national government webpage where they say that the city of Manta was having there was a lot of solidarity by sharing all these products amongst neighbors, because of course not everybody had an orchard, but the neighborhood had the orchard and would share with the other neighbor that didn't have the orchard. And okay, these 100 orchards, we thought back then that the pandemic was going to stop the amount of orchards that were delivered. However, this was not the case. We started they started to get the creative ideas. I think that we're all used to online, and therefore we started to do workshops on how to build a workshop on orchard at home, because everybody was started to be busy during the lockdown, and therefore all of this was delivered to the interested party. They were called there for to and therefore, once they received the training, they said, "Okay, I want this." And they would get together next to a field, of course, with all the biosafety measures, keeping all the meters of distance that the WHO recommended, and they would deliver the seeds. And as they already had the training, they had everything ready, the compost, everything ready. Therefore, they started to build their own orchard. And then through working with different universities, we created WhatsApp groups so that the students could do the follow-up and control of these orchards that had already been increasing. From 100, we went to 500, and from 100 to 1,000. And then imagine how many do we have today? We have 5,000 family orchards. And okay, this is something that happened amidst the pandemic. We went increasing once God allows us, to be better off, and the effects of the pandemic started calming down. We started to work with community orchards. They now become an adventure. As a matter of fact, today we're going to have a biofair, and where all the products and all the vegetables that we are going to be traded today through a biofair. And therefore, after the family orchards, we moved to the community orchards. And right now we have 100 community orchards that now become are now a venture. And last year, we went back to school and face to face. That's why it was so important to start working with our children.
And there, the goal is to have a school garden in each educational institute. What does it represent? It allows us to save because what we used to buy at the market, now we're going to be able to use for other services or needs that we may have. During the pandemic, savings was $10, $20 a month. And with that, people could pay for the internet so the children could go to school virtually. What else does a family garden represent? The opportunity to take care of the environment, because a very small seed planted, it gives leaves and fruits, and then it gives oxygen to the environment. Savings, the fact that we're going to be taking care of our health, because by consuming products that are free of fertilizers, we're going to be strong and healthy. We have a lot of testimonies. A lady who was one of our first beneficiaries out of the 100 had lupus, and she was saying that the recommendation was to eat organic products. So there we have the benefits: savings, the environment, we protect our health. And now in Manta, once we saw the number of gardens that we had in the city, we had to create laws. Then we created an ordinance, and there we talked about the agroecological gardens that are built in the urban and rural areas. And we also talked about the types of gardens. We can have family gardens, community gardens, school gardens. We also talked about the objectives, and that is bring the family together because through the garden, the family goes out, they work on it, they talk about it. At schools, it is also to create that awareness in our children that we also need to eat good food and be healthy. And I think this ordinance is a very important tool that we should not uh, stop building it because there are some new things and events that come up through practice. And I always said, I'm going to first build these gardens. And after I have these gardens, I'm going to go to the theory, which is building on the ordinance with all the experience. And there, for example, we had a person that was saying, well, I don't have my garden, my piece of land to have a garden, a vertical garden. So what are we going to do? Or a horizontal one, vertical. Generally, verticals are on the wall, and horizontal ones are on the ground. So if you didn't have the opportunity to have a horizontal one, then we said, okay, let's go and do a vertical one. And then maybe they said, no, on the wall where I am planting, the sun doesn't light there, and they're not gonna grow. So we identify a neighbor. Land, and as part of the ordinance we had to explicitly say that if they use the land of the neighbor, of course they needed the written authorization by this neighbor. So these are things that were coming up that we had to include in the ordinance. I do think that the success of our project here in the city has been participating, and I'm not just talking about this project, but all the projects. We, as the authority right now, I was saying that we started when I was a council woman back in 2019. I got reelected in 2023. Now I am the mayor of the city, but it is not just to say, here, I have this project and this is my team, go ahead and do it. We participated, we got involved because we don't just talk or supply, but go down and plan, get our hands dirty. And the project is wonderful. There is a lot of places in our country that call us to ask how we do it, how it's worked so well. And I've also been interviewed for international magazines about the success of a project in the city. I received an honoris causa for self-sustainability for this community and family gardens project. And I also think it is important to bring a message in the middle of everything that we are going through in the country, global warming. IDB was always looking for creative ideas to have greener cities. And my message is yes, of course, global warming is going to, you know, create a collapse. In the world, and we can see how in the middle of a pandemic, for example, animals were enjoying of walking around, the oceans were bluer and cleaner, our beaches were clean. So my advice is always going to be that if I knew that in the future the world is going to end tomorrow, I would plant a tree today. If I knew that the world is going to end tomorrow today, I would also go to create a minga with the youth and get the beaches beautiful. If I knew that the world is going to end tomorrow, even I knowing that the seed is not going to grow, today I also would plant a garden. And that is not just because I am a crazy about this. That is because my mother taught me that what happens to the earth happens to the children of the earth. So if I want to be good, I want my family to be good, the earth has to be good. It has to has really leafy trees where little birds can nest and they can give fruits, shadow for our children to play under it. And I am really convinced I cannot do this alone. In Manta, we have gone from the concept of the mayor can do it all alone to I'm going to join her and work with her. In Manta, we're a team. That's my mantra. A soccer team has 11 players. Manta has 300,000 inhabitants, and that's the number of people who play in my team, and they always want to win that beautiful green city where there is a lot of love to give. And I also invite you to come and visit us. When you come to Manta, you're gonna want to stay. God bless. Mayors, thank you very much for sharing with us this beautiful experience. Congratulations to for the leadership you have shown since you were in the council of the city and maybe before with the units. And you said something that I would like to highlight and leave it here for our final discussions, and that is involvement, which is fundamental among the institutions and the community. So without further ado, I thank you for your presence, your inspiring words, and I'm gonna let you go, hoping that many municipalities follow Manta's example. It's been an honor for us to have you as the keynote who opened this webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to leave the interview for the magazine so that you can take a look at it. Blessings. Thank you, Mayor. So now she's really set the bar high. Now we're going to go to specific case presentations. And as Maria Camila said, today we are going to listen from urban gardens in Ciudad de Mexico and also the food procurement program of Benjamin Constant in the Amazon in Brazil, and also about the food bank of Quito, Ecuador. Before I give the floor to our first speaker, we would like to ask you a couple of questions. Our very special audience for the day. We're going to use the Mentimeter tool that you can see here on the screen. So there are three ways to do this. You can scan the QR code. You can go to menti.com and use the code number that's here on the screen, or you can use the links that we are sharing on the chat box right now. So the first question is, this is kind of to characterize our audience and understand the expectations of this webinar. So what city do you live in? Here we have the first one, Bogotá, Belo Horizontes, Brussels. Good evening in Brussels, Barranquilla, Benjamin Constant, Washington, Asunción, San Jose de Costa Rica, Santa Marta, Tecuantepe, Tecuantepe, Mexico City. We have a very geographically diverse audience that makes us really content. San Antonio, Texas, Tabatinga in the Amazon, Grenade in Spain, also on the other side of the ocean, Quito, Curitiba, Praga in Portugal, and Paus, Suroeste in France. Thank you all for joining us, and that's great to be able to reach so many different areas so that we can see different initiatives. So what sector do you belong to? That's our second question. Local, public local, national, public, civil sector, the academia, NGOs, or international organizations. Here we have the answers. Several people who work in the public local sector and in NGOs also, private sector too, and public national sector and international organizations. And there are some people from the civil society and academia. Thank you. And then our last question, to understand your expectations, kind of. What food security strategy for vulnerable groups have been applied in your city? Urban gardens, community dining rooms, food banks? None. Great, that answer, because that is exactly what we want to do, to motivate and incentivize the various municipalities and regions, soup kitchens, to start with these initiatives. Agro of food gardens, school seed banks, financial aid. Okay, thank you very much for your participation. Very interesting responses. And now we're going to start our conversation where we expect, I'm sure we're going to touch on several of the topics that you mentioned here as when you were answering the questions. First of all, and before I give the floor to our next guest, we're going to show you a video on the experience of Mexico City on city gardens, urban gardens.
En los últimos años se han generado
During the last few years, a number of tools and techniques for urban gardens have been generated. You could think it is costly and complicated. However, that's not true. We have low cost techniques and possibility to generate supporting communities to do this. During the first semester of 2022, we had the community urban gardens in communities of low resources in a cooperation with the IDP. The objective was to bring these practices to communities with lower resources to promote these gardens and generating networks in areas where this was not happening. During the project, two urban gardens were installed with different type techniques of planting. The first one is the direct ground that was in Tlatelenco, and the second one that was called Santocho Garden that was implemented on a rooftop of the little school that was located in Santo Domingo, Coyacan. A group of specialists trained 49 people in both spaces, and they also collaborated in designing and installing these gardens. Trainings were held for 3 months, and they taught different types of planting based on taking advantage of reused materials such as hydroponic and vertical, and generating um, compost, and also take advantage of home residues. In coordination with the alternate technique group, we implemented two types of compost. The first one was Chinampea microbag compost. All you have to do is add a liquid bacteria to accelerate the decaying of this organic material. And here we have an important design based on recycled. Once both were finished, then we experimented using different types of biofertilizers to identify the right dosage for better growth of the plants and products. Both types were can be found in the Ecotechnics Manual for Regeneration of Cities that shows the right technologies in popular neighborhood sites. A group of 27 students from the high school were trained. They are responsible for maintaining a garden in that neighborhood. With the trainings, it was possible to promote collaboration, replication, and transference of knowledge, and we reached 164 beneficiaries of the municipality of Cuauhteloc and 117 beneficiaries. And now for a greater reach, we had an alliance with the Secretary of the Environment of Mexico City, and the event Technologies and Urban Gardens to Regenerate in April 2022 was promoted. 500 people participated coming from different projects that are part of urban agriculture, and they are interested in creating a network of garden growers in Mexico. SEDEMA, from its platforms, also promotes adopting the manual for the regeneration of the cities. Our invitation is to visit the new gardens created in Coyoacán. Read the manual of the techniques to regenerate the cities as a result of this experience, and especially to plant in your little gardens, in your terraces, or your balconies, and be a part of this network. Thank you very much. That was great, that video. And I would like to introduce Mr. Arnold Ricarde, who is the coordinator of this initiative in Mexico. He directed some initiatives for reforestation, and then he created Alliance of Mexico Without Plastics, and we have an organization that promotes circular economy. He's here to go deeper and about these urban gardens that have been implemented in Mexico, and we have had a successful integration with the urban communities and vulnerable communities. Good morning. A pleasure. Thank you, Carlos. Yes, we had the wonderful experience in Mexico City to implement these gardens, and our organization has implemented others throughout the years. And it is actually a challenge being able to be with the communities that are the most needed. And however, these gardens have had a great impact in Mexico City, but in the colonies, they have some buying purchase. Now we're going to popular neighborhoods, and this partnership with IDV allowed us to. Excuse me, Arnold. Could you maximize your screen? Sorry. Yeah. Let me see. Can you see it now? Thank you, Arnold. Okay, so what is our objective? Our objective is to create food sovereignty, and for the mayor of Manta, we had a big acceleration through the pandemic. People noticed that survival comes through the gardens in case of a big crisis, replicating the organic cycle, that is to compost the waste and use that as the input for gardens. That's a big alternative, and we call it the organic cycle. So it was very important to connect all these, the waste, compost, and the garden, to create a cycle, and also make it available, accessible. In this project, we were looking for urban technologies that were accessible for the people with the lowest income could buy them. We found bacteria. They are expensive when you buy them, as the video said. They accelerate the decaying process. So we found in Xochimilco the ideal bacteria, and we were testing all this.
We saw that there was an integration amongst the neighbors, that we recovered open spaces that sometimes are like our empty spaces, parks that are not used, or spaces that the government has, and and all the benefits where we have healthy food, salads and vegetables, and the use of the food, but also the health. A lot of people in Mexico use the urban orchards as a green drugstore. Therefore, they have a lot of herbal plants that they can use. And this is also an alternative that may be not a food sovereignty, but also that it does have an impact in the health of the people in urban areas. And of course, once again, we can say that self-management tell us that when people are working with nature, when they put their hands inside the earth, there's less stress, less anxiety. This helps people in general. And then we have also we've seen that we've been working through many years with the government of the city of Mexico, and we've created and right now there is a program that's called Pilares with 300 innovation centers, and we can see that we can see how we can count. We can also see that we can implement organic garden. We have people that have dedicated to the composting, and we also need to harvest rainwater so that these orchards can have this water provision and don't compete with the supply of the city. We've also worked a lot in plague control, and we've done networks to be able to deal with this situation because it does happen. And okay, when we talk about urban regeneration that you mentioned, it's very interesting. And we went to several conclusions, and we can see that we can create an urban regeneration committee and also somebody that we can see that when we have seen that with the government with changes in the with the changes of majors, the problem doesn't last. That's why we need to have like a hybrid between the government and the citizens that allow to changes of places so that environmental public policies, especially when we talk organic food matters, can give continuity to all these government changes. And we can see that we worked in a lot of elements to promote urban orchards. We have them in the city of Mexico that they're valid. And we're also working in fiscal incentives for the production of and also and we also have fiscal incentives. If you have an orchard in in your ceiling, you have a deduction on your income tax. It's very important to encourage this about the organic cycles of carbon and water to increase urban technologies and popular technologies. Sometimes we have all this and tools and to be able to have this network of urban archers with the support of the government and the private sector. And yes, here we have seen in this slide, we can see the different proposals. We can see this committee that I was mentioning, and we recommend for it to be autonomous, that there can be an environmental budget of and also the private initiatives, that it's integrated by the civil society, the academia. This is so important to monitor all the testing that it's done. And as I was telling you, that this can go beyond the administrative changes. And right now we are recommending, and we can see that this is essential for all the programs that are applied in the cities and big scale to have support centers for urban orchards which can provide a lot of technical advisory to all the people that are implementing their orchards at urban level. They can be funded by the government and foundations, and just to enable and to provide seeds uh, and to work all kinds of tools, plague control. It's like a help center. And yes, for example, in Cuba, it worked in Havana, Cuba. It worked really well. This urban orchards worked really well. That they integrated the local network, and we can see that the recommendations we want to establish and we can see that many programs we can see there's a lot of conflict amongst neighbors, and to create we need to have the intelligence to be able to mitigate those issues. And that's why we work with facilitation groups that solve conflicts amongst neighbors. We wanted to establish common orchards but also family parcels, and we can have a common area where everybody works, but also individual areas, and to consider the storage of the collecting and storage of water of many cities, because in many cities of Latin America we're having a water scarcity, and that's why it's very important for us to store rainwater to be able to be able to work and we can add water to all these orchards without affecting the supply channels. We were working a lot. We have a lot of techniques that are excellent to be able to grow upwards, and there are also spaces, and also that we did was to do like home compost that allows for very small spaces to be able to have a compost and to treat our organic residues with worms in a very low cost. And that's why there's no pretext. We can resolve that the issues are part of the issues that we have of a solid waste, and at the same time we can nurture the ground and also to generate healthy food for all. It was a pleasure working with the IDB, and I do hope when we can increase this type of initiatives that also connect us more with nature and its cycles. Okay, thank you, Arnold, and thank you, Arnold. Thank you so much for your participation and for all these initiatives. And we're behind in the agenda, and that's why I would ask all the people that please be time. And I also want to tell the attendees that you can ask your questions. And if we have time, we'll answer at the end of the webinar because we have time constraints. And if not, we'll do it in the sustainable, if not, we do it in the sustainable cities block. And that's why we are going to leave Mauricio Veloso, who's the municipal secretary of the city of Benjamin Constant in the Brazilian Amazon. And okay, before coordinating, therefore he was the coordinator of the program of Ben Viver that's funded by the European Union, and it's been executed in the municipalities of Alto Solimos. He's been worked in regularization programs and also in buying. And he's going to tell us about he's going to tell us about the program of Benjamin Constant that wants to encourage the communities to work through the local procurement of products to be able to supply schools. Go ahead, Mauricio. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Despite the fact that we are here in the border with Peru and with Colombia, eh, we understand Spanish, but I would want it to talk about slowly and to so that everybody is able to understand what the program is about. And we do a program that it's called the 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 food procurement program. This is a program of the federal government of the uh, that and that's why the municipality it's just in the first year of executions, but with very positive outcomes. We can say that the programs work with two types of audiences that would be rural producers and also with families in situations that are vulnerable that we also work with food. We work with food that it's produced for this families or family producers. And this program it's being executed by the Municipal City Hall of Benjamin Constant and also the Farming Secretariat as well. And this is our first year of execution. And that's why we have more than 10 tons of food that are delivered to all the families that are in vulnerable conditions. There are families that are already registered and through social networks and CRAS, that it's a network that is called the CRAS, also through schools, churches, etc., and other kinds of projects. And but PEA acquires the project of acquires these products, and these families sometimes are not able to survive, and they having a public policy that encourages the producers to have the guarantee that they're going to trade their products to whom we that's why we provide this food to people that are in vulnerable conditions in big cities. That's why here in Benjamin Constant in this network, we have 2,000 families that are registered in this program. We have families that are receiving all this food. This food gets to the secretariat, and we do the distribution and all the homes that have been registered by the program. And how do we do this? Permit? Okay, we do it through a program that it's called the Farmers Register. This program doesn't need um, doesn't need a bid, and different to school snacks, and where we do need a bid. But this is a program that it's very well done, and these programs just are just for the producers. There is no bid. We do like a public selection respecting some criteria so that all these producers are able to participate. Okay, we do a register, and what we do is that we work with the ministers of the citizens, and it's very important to highlight that this is the organ that controls this program, that it's called the Municipal Council for Social Aid. This council does the control toward, and they do periodic meetings, and they do a follow-up of all of the development to be able to show that the program is going to be developed in an adequate way. And how does the program work? And we have a nutritionist, and that's very important. It's going to be a nutritionist. In this case, she does the menu, she's the one that prepares the baskets, and she also does the follow-up of the agencies and also of vulnerable families. And she also does, they also do a follow-up of the farmer's family, which is so important. We can see that the farmers, for example, can trade the products, but they have nutrition problems inside their homes. And that's why the nutritionist goes to the homes of the farmers and they verify how the nutrition it's doing. But we do a feedback with the farmers. We try to see what they need in this week, what do we need to deliver, and we send the nutritionist all we send to the nutritionist all the information. She does the menu, she prepares the baskets, and we deliver these baskets to all these families. We deliver for 200, 300, even 400 families. The ones receive the ones receive the farmers with different with fish, chicken, eggs, all kinds of baskets, and these baskets it's the basic, it's like the basic menu for these families. And then also we work, and this is when the city hall also has the program that it's focused, that it's so focused in different kinds of social workers. They work with children and the schools and and there is a program called the humanitarian meal, as it were a restaurant for the community where where we give lunches to vulnerable families and all of these people had access to this restaurant so that they're able so that they're fed once a day, so at least a part of the program. This is something that we send it to this program of community restaurants, but it's very important that for us to have quality food, the quality, this is important so that the food gets in a very good quantity and quality for the families. It's very important to work with technical assistance. And the ones do all kinds of visits, register, they do records, they do seminars, they verify the production so that the producer is about to deliver and it's about to can participate in this program in an adequate manner. And this technical visits of this secretariat is so important. And these families, most of them are registered in the social are in the social media of the family assistance. These are families that have low income. They have of I mean, elderly, young people, and we also have all the information we have the information that these baskets are they're helping these families so much throughout the month and everything that it's done and everything associated with nutrition and food. This program started a year ago, and where we were able to have products that we acquired from the producers, and we do hope that next year we are able to leap to more than 1,500,000 reales to buy products from the farmers. That's why if we keep on with this support for all these low income families, it's very important as well to say that this is not just about the donation of food. We also have to check the product as a whole. These low income families get training inside the program that it's called the Entrepreneur City, so that they're able to have orchards in their homes, and so that they are able to do the processing of this food, and that they do a whole process for entrepreneurship training, so that all these families are able to survive. And when they're no longer registered in this program, they have an income and they know how to handle it. That's why this nutritional program, it's working a lot. Okay, thank you, Mauricio. It's been a privilege to it's it's been a privilege. And now I would like to leave Alicia Guevara, who is the director of the Food Bank of Quito, and she is also a professor of the Chemical Engineering and Agroindustry of the Universidad Politécnica Nacional, where she leads a lot of environmental projects and that have generated very important publications. Alicia is going to tell us about the Food Bank of Quito that benefits more than 80,000 people. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. And thank you so much. I wanted to tell you about the product that is done by the food banks of Quito. And I do hope that you are able to see my presentation. The Food Bank of Quito is the first food bank in Ecuador. And they've been working since 2003. And and uh, and therefore he can be with us, and therefore I'm a university professor, and that's why in this contact with the academia has allowed us to be certified members of the Global Bank of, and also that we have a certification in good practices. If And okay, what encourages, what drives this? Okay, only in Ecuador, more than 90,000 of food are wasted. More than 100 food it's wasted, and in Quito, we can say that more 100 tons are discarded. And this waste happens because in Ecuador takes the second place in child malnutrition, and we have poverty index. And okay, here there's a summary of what the food bank's done. What do we do? What do we do as a whole? And but this would be like a sum up. But these are four main cases. The first is that we need to recover food that it's been donated from different sources. We can recover food from different sources, companies, the market, supermarkets, distribution centers, and also the farming sector, because in this sector we also have a lot of food that it hasn't been delivered. The second step, once we've been able to gather and rescue this food, it's that we classified it according to the volunteers. The food banks, we need the voluntary work to be able to work. Once the food is classified, then it's delivered to institutions and families that are in vulnerable conditions, with whom we accompany, and mainly in when it's related to training. And once the food is delivered, we need to take it, we need to do reports, we need to verify the good usage of the donations, because what we do is to offer traceability to our donors, so that they are clear about the destination of their donors. And I would wanted to mention that the food banks in Quito, as we can said, it serves 80,000 people a month. But I want to say that when they see such a big food bank, they think that it's going to be complicated to replicate this model. No, the food bank of Quito, it's 6 square meters, which is equivalent to an office. All the initial funding was done for from universities and for this small that small warehouse that started serving 200 people a week, and we did whatever it was possible. And we knew that there was a lot of waste of food 20 years ago. Nobody talked about wasted food, but we started working with students and professors to do a recovery of the markets, which is what we had available. And okay, the project kept on growing at levels that in the and the we moved from 2,000 people to 100,000 people. And of course, it was not enough. We needed a bigger space. And this is when we started to work and and what they offered us was this, and which this type of for giving, because this is things this okay, and this is when they take this is they allowed us to have this open space. As you can see, had no walls, it had no nothing. And over here we had this space, which is where we deliver food for 80,000 people. And okay, this change at the beginning was like a warehouse. This was done thanks to international cooperation, the support of the academia, of the private companies, the staff, the volunteers, the number of the volunteers. We don't get money from the state. Everything that has been accomplished has been because of the goodwill of people that have wanted to participate in all the things. And that now from this warehouse that has 1,250 and square meters, we started to collect the food that we get from distribution centers. We've been doing this for 20 years, and we also work. And at the beginning, we didn't have donors, but of course now we have 75 permanent donors that come from the biggest supermarket chains. And then we're also working for a couple of years. We've been working in the farming sector, and also we have volunteers because nobody we need to harvest the food, we need to pick it up if and okay, if there is a surplus of production, so whatever, we did a project, and we also, and we were able, we've been able to get things little by little through projects, and that's why now we have this small truck, and this is how we've collect, and this has been so important that this has allowed us to recover food that then are classified in this warehouse that we see over here. They are classified as you can see in this picture, thanks to the help of 100 volunteers a day, 100 different volunteers that come and help us. And we work 6 days a week, and that's why we have 600 volunteers. Thanks to their support, we've been able to do this. And I think that, and as we've been inside the university, our goal has been it's that nothing gets wasted, and we're the capacity of processing food. If some fruit is very mature, it needs to be processed, we do it. And we work with we do marmalades, we do dehydrated food, not to produce, but to save so that nothing gets wasted. And we've worked with egg and flour, thanks to the help of our students and our technical and volunteers that are very committed to this work that we're doing.
También hemos logrado una alianza con la empresa pública metropolitana. Nosotros les entregamos nuestros residuos, ellos elaboran abono orgánico, desarrollan plantas en viveros, y una vez que el alimento está listo, ahorita están cosechando brócolis, coles, lechugas, plantas medicinales. Cuando está
Broccoli and medicinal plants. They call us, and then they are brought to the food bank, and then that's how we close the circle. From this warehouse, it has cold rooms and everything there, thanks to international cooperation. The food that needs to be refrigerated gets refrigerated. The ones that go to shelves, it goes to shelves. And here we have 75,000 plus users. And then we bring this food to organizations. 75% of what we deliver is fruits and vegetables and food that belongs to the basic basket, healthy food. This is a summary of what we are doing. 75 organizations, 991 families. So far, we have saved 28 million of food rations that would have gone to waste if it hadn't been because of the goodwill and solidarity of the people. We are part of the agroaliment food pact. This is thanks to the result of a participation work. And here in this pact, we have a multi-actor platform. We have the civil society, private company, the academia, the international cooperation, and the local and national governments. This is a summary of what we do in the food banks. I understand that there's like 2,000 of these around the world. Here we invite these cities to be part of these food banks collaborating in this solution. It is not humane to waste food where we have people that are hungry. Here is some contact data of the Quito food bank. So we hope we can see you here and visit us, please. Thank you very much for your attention. Excellent, Alicia. Thank you very much for sharing with us this beautiful and interesting experience. It also reinforces several concepts that we have insisted on and that we have seen in these presentations: voluntary, solidarity, participation, and relationship between the community and the state. When I say state, I'm talking about the local governments. Now, going to the next part of our webinar, I would like to welcome two guests that are experts in this subject matter. First of all, I would like to present Mr. Rafael Parra Peña, Senior Specialist of the Environmental Division of IDB. Rafael is a doctor in economy from the Sussex University, and he's played a fundamental role in formulating policies and understanding the impact of climate change and policies. He is now directing projects to approach things such as poverty, loss of biodiversity, and all these problems. And we also have Mrs. Zulma Fonseca, the Deputy Director of Nutrition in Bogota. She's a nutritionist, a dietist from National University. She's a specialist in epidemiology, and she has a master's in epidemiology. She has over 15 years experience in creating programs for food security in public sector and international organizations. Okay, so to take advantage of having you here, thank you very much for being here. I would like to, we have prepared some questions to talk about strategies of food security of vulnerable urban groups from the vast experience you both have and the experience that you have been presented here today. So considering that you two are experts, each one of you with a different approach, but which is very complementary, I would like to ask you a first question. Also considering what we just saw on your professional experience. Rafael and Sulma, I would like to ask you, what are the minimum conditions to replicate food security strategies for vulnerable groups as the ones seen here and for other cities in the region? So can we start with you, Rafael? Okay, good. Good morning, audience, all of you, Carlos, Maria Camila. Thank you very much for this invitation. I have the phrase of Manta Mayor. What happens to the earth happens to the earth's children. And in that sense, all these initiatives that we are seeing here talk about community gardens, food banks, seed banks. They all talk about urban agriculture. And urban agriculture is inserted, just to give you some context, to the agro-food systems. There's a series of benefits, 5 of them, increasing food security. Everything we saw increases that, and that is because it reduces dependency on the cities, from the cities to bring food from other places, inside the nation or outside the nation. That is also very positive. It also improves availability of fresh food, the possibility of you being at home and then you go to a local market with local products produced in the city at a food bank that gives freshness and nutrition. That is something very important. It also reduces the ecological footprint of the agro food systems. That's because when you bring food from other places, which is not the community gardens in the cities, then you have transportation costs, and then you also have everything that is generated by that transportation pollution, especially if there is fossil fuels. And another thing that is also very interesting that I would like to highlight here to give you context and answer your question is that they promote employment. Urban agriculture generates jobs and economical opportunities for the cities. So under this context, I think the webinar is clear that we need to promote all these initiatives. To answer the question as to what are the minimum conditions to replicate these strategies for food security here or there or anywhere, we need to go to the regulatory frameworks. They have to be flexible. We cannot have regulation forbidding urban agriculture in some areas of the city by nature. Urban agriculture is forbidding to the sense that land costs in the city is higher. So there is like disincentivation to disincentivize using the soil, the ground, or the land for agriculture. So maybe that is to have a restaurant or that piece of land or something that is related to services. So at least that if the market is not incentivizing that, the regulation doesn't. There are cities such as Buenos Aires, Lima, Montevideo that have laws and urban and peri-urban agriculture programs promoting this. Montevideo created a national urban agriculture system in 2019 promoting agriculture everywhere in the city, and that is fundamental. After that, we have that regulation. But how about being a little bit more daring and innovative? How about thinking about uh, programs to lease low-cost land for urban agriculture, seed banks, etc.? How about thinking about tax incentives for these types of gardens? And after that, after thinking about the regulations, you need to think about the coordination among public entities when you think about developing this type of programs, such as the mayor of Manta or the case of Benjamin Constant in Mexico, etc. Coordination among public entities is key because all entities have something to contribute. So let me give you an example. For example, Bogota. Maybe my colleague can talk about Bogota. Bogota is my garden, which is an initiative of the Botanic Garden, the City Hall of Bogota, and several stakeholders. So when we link Botanic Garden, they know exactly what are the varieties, what is the weather in Bogota, etc., what actually works for urban agriculture. And this has to be accompanied, another minimum condition, not just interdisciplinarity of institutions with their expert knowledge, but also connection with the market. How about thinking about programs that a minimum condition would be chaining with a private company, whole dealers, or retailers that buy the products of the gardens that are produced in the cities, and this generates sustainability. It generates chains, employment, which is an element that is fundamental. Plus, also train them technical assistance to all these gardens. In Mexico's case, we saw center supporting certain to urban gardens. That is wonderful to have. Another minimum condition to replicate this type of initiatives, looking at the cases that we all saw, is relationship with the community that has to be completely close. In Mexico's case, for example, they talk about having a policy to solve conflicts among disputes among the neighbors. That is key. But also involve the community instead of thinking in strategies from top to bottom, but from bottom to top, where you identify the needs from the production all the way to commercialization, and that connects things. That would be my answer, kind of long, but I think it can help to replicate these initiatives. Thank you, Rafael. Sulma, what could you tell us about these minimum conditions to replicate the strategies? First of all, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the invitation so that I can share from my experience what is our vision about strengthening, especially in urban areas, of these actions that are linked to production at the city level. The first thing I have to say, I also agree with the need to have a regulatory framework that will facilitate to connect the food systems. And I also wanted to talk a little bit more directly to what we conceive as food security and nutritional security. One of the points that is just being strengthened is how we go beyond the specific needs of the individuals and the people and recognize the importance of the food systems and how these food systems can become sustainable, protecting the environment, and in the end, how that can generate a greater and more powerful impact regarding the nutritional and food situation of the people. That is key as part of the process. Another key aspect that Rafael was talking about, which is community participation from Bogota specifically, and in the policy, in the public policy that we have for food security, we have a concept that we've called food citizenship, and that is how we can have food citizens that will conceive food beyond just the process of consuming food. But even though Bogota only have 0.4% of people that are in the rural area, the rest of the people can recognize the importance of being able of making decisions regarding the food, of being responsible consumers, prevent food waste that was also mentioned before, and also to strengthen the governance processes of asking and participating in all the processes to define projects and policies that will be aligned with the needs of the people in view of those vulnerabilities that are there, but for them to be accompanied by the articulation with the food system. In addition, and specifically also to the Bogota case, is how can we recognize that besides having the consumers, we also have the producers that are in that little part, rural Bogota area, but that also are part of that region in Cundinamarca, which is also an essential part so that a city such as Bogota can cover food needs. So being able to articulate that and to get that recognition as to what our little producers need to be part of a process, I think is another way to replicate. Interinstitutional articulation is key at CESAN, which is the intersector community of food security. We involve several actors, and I think it is important. We have, for example, the Economic Development Secretary's Office, which is very key for all the processing in the city, the Social Integration Secretary, the Education Secretary, which are also fundamental in processes for public procurement. We are also involving another actor, which is the Botanic Garden. There is something fundamental, which is the need to formalize and train the small producers or those that are part of these projects that have an approach for social inclusion that will allow them to strengthen the abilities and also to transcend and go beyond just an exercise that happens as part of a project, but for it to be sustainable in time that will allow them to generate resources and that we can connect these possibilities to be able to have these urban agronomy and also connected to the city plus all the supporting network throughout the whole productive chain. Thank you. Thank you, Sulma. Rafael, in view of your answer, I would like to ask you, please answer quickly in less than 2 minutes due to time constraints that we have. What are the key elements that you think need to be taken into account of the initiatives that we saw to promote food policies for vulnerable cities, of vulnerable people in the cities? I would talk about three things. I would talk about sustainability. these strategies of seed banks, community gardens, they need to be sustainable. And I said that it is very important to have a connection with the market, the marketplace. In that sense, if you bring them together, they can be sustainable in time. And also from the production side, of course, you have to give them technical assistance, trainings, so that community gardens can be sustainable, strong, robust with a production that is high, nutritious, etc., and also go to the market, and that that makes it sustainable in time. Another thing that I think is key, and we're talking about vulnerable people, inclusion. We have to work with vulnerable groups. So, for example, the special approach these type of initiatives can have so that they can reach women, youth, people with disabilities is something very interesting, very beautiful that can also help. That is a characteristic of that makes, which is an element that needs to be taken into account. And another thing that I think could be here is innovation. We're in Latin America, of course, but in Europe, we have examples where we have urban agriculture, banks, gardens. We have amazing innovations in the way they do urban agriculture, vertically, horizontally, the way they do dripping, watering, etc. So from the production side, innovation. I would also include another thing, which is corporate innovation, which is a little more elevated, if you will. And for these community gardens to become entrepreneurs uh, of the urban view, so that they have gardens connected and they increase the productivity. So these type of things are important to summarize: three: sustainability, inclusion, and innovation. That would be my answer. Great, Rafael. Thank you very much. Sulma, taking into account what we have heard here and your personal and professional experience with vulnerable populations that you have had at ICBF and now in the Secretariat of Bogota, how do you think this type of strategies will allow to bring vulnerable people to connect to formality? I think the first opportunity we have is within the framework of these programs or services that are generally concentrated to food assistance, for them to transcend and include these social inclusion actions. And as part of social inclusion, not just seen from the possibility to generate resources. For example, we also have a case that is worth mentioning, which is the community kitchens, the soup kitchens, I'm sorry. We favor the access to these type of people who have this severe lack, but it covers only 40%, and we generate different strategies for inclusion. One of them is the possibility to have urban gardens, so that we can have gardens that are thought to have self-consumption, but also to go to the possibility to commercialize and also verify what other alternatives we have around the area where these kitchens are located, where these vulnerable people live, that can generate other social inclusion processes like vulnerability, but simpler things that are fundamental, like access to other fundamental systems of services such as healthcare. Going beyond assistance, I think, is one of the first ones. The second one is having places where we can strengthen the competences in entrepreneurship and formalizations, and that is also regarding a community organization. There is something that I think is very important, and that is in some cases the weaknesses some social groups may have, some producing groups, especially the small producers, to know what are the best ways to associate themselves, to commercialize, what are the means to guarantee the right productive processes. Sustainability is one of the products they produce, so that they can actually be considered competitive regarding the marketplace. I think that is a big possibility. And I would like to share another experience which I think is very valuable, and that is how we have been able to take advantage of the public procurement in Secretaría de Integración Social and Secretaría de Educación in these social services where we have food assistance, buy a lot of food. So the possibility to connect small producers for them to be the ones that besides can supply for these needs of food, these entities have is something very valuable. And the city hall right now has like an agreement with the Agency of Commercialization and Innovation for the Development of Bogota that brings together all the agricultures in Bogota and Cundinamarca, has strengthened the community organization to manage these organizational and production capabilities the small peasants require. And there is another actor such as the Social Integration Secretariat thus generating the possibility for them to be the ones guaranteeing food for some specific baskets that we give to some vulnerable groups. So here through connection, stability, these small producers have, we have been able to strengthen and right now reach over 20,000 baskets that collect different types of food to favor the people that we serve with these baskets with healthy food and also generate what we all want, and that we have seen throughout today's presentation, which is having the capabilities among the people that produce food that is also close to the city that thus favoring these food systems that are healthy and sustainable. Thank you, Sulma, for our international audience. Just to clarify that Cundinamarca is the province that surrounds Bogota and where most of the food that is eaten in the city comes from. Thank you, Sulma. Thank you for your comments and your experience. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some questions that we have received. We have very little time. Arnold, I don't know if you're there. You're around. We have a couple of questions. I'm going to ask you two questions, and I hope you can answer them very quickly, because as you can see, we are closing. Jean Arocha is asking us, what are the tax incentives in Mexico's experience and whether they are for the people operating the gardens? And another question, could you explain a little bit more about the dispute resolution, and who generates that? Yeah, for the first question, it was born in Mexico. We have a law that we have tax incentives, and then you are part of the program, and then they have to send pictures proving the spaces that have these gardens, and then the Secretary of the Environment goes and validates these places, and then they issue a number, a capturing number, a reference number that can be used when you are paying your taxes so that the tax can be deducted. Generally, it is the income tax a deduction there, and then we're working on other tax incentives. But this is a tool as a government policy that is very efficient because it incentivizes for the people to generate food in their rooftops, in their backyards, and then they reduce taxes. And the second one, dispute resolution calls for facilitators, as we call them. They are people that are trained to solve conflicts, and they mediate between the two people that are part of the dispute to avoid this from stopping the project. We've seen that many projects that have the resources, the technique, the space, they have a lack of social harmony, and then the whole project can come crumbling down. So this is a tool that's worked, and we have integrated to the various projects, and it also works to stop projects from uh, going bad because of the conflicts between the disputes among the neighbors. We have other questions, but unfortunately, we're not, we don't have time. We need to um, comply with our schedule, but we hope we can answer them in our blog space. I lost them. I lost this sound. I he muted himself. Yes, you're muted. I'm sorry. I just shared with you and the link where you can find our blogs that we have published for this webinar and two previous ones. We hope we can answer the other questions that you have made today. And due to time constraints, we haven't been able to answer. So thank you all very much. First of all, our speakers, it's been really fruitful to listen to those strategies that have been implemented from the mayor of Malta, Arnold, Mauricio, Alicia, Benjamin, Constant, and Quito, those cities, those cases. And Sulma and Rafael for being here with us and sharing their experience with us. Thank you all very much, and we hope you are on the lookout for the series of webinars that we will have next year. Thank you very much.